Okay, looks like we are now live. Good Sunday evening, everybody. There is obviously a lot to dissect in the weather world, at least in terms of the upstate weather, the North Carolina weather, that is, with the winter storm warning now in effect. So let's pull up the radar here, and I'll give everybody a second to get tuned in. I will try to pull up the chat on the computer next to me and see if I can get some questions answered if you guys have any. Okay, let's open this up over here. Okay, comment section is open. Okay, so I think we're good to go now. Good evening, meteorologist Griffin Hardy. I'm the new weekend evening meteorologist for those of you who have not met me yet. I just started a couple months ago, and plenty of active weather. Not a couple weeks ago, rather. I said a couple months ago. Pardon me. All right. Anyways, let's talk about the winter storm warning that is now in effect for western North Carolina. It includes all of the pink shaded area that you see up here. That's where we're expecting some pretty significant snowfall tonight. And further down to the south, those snowfall totals will probably diminish a little bit, all the way down to pretty much nothing across the upstate. So let me preface this by saying, I know a lot of people probably have a lot of individual questions about their own town. I politely ask that you hold off on that just for now because to put it simply, we just don't really have enough time to go by individual towns and counties, but if you just let me pull up the maps, I'll be happy to go over the areas where we're kind of expecting, with what we're expecting the forecast. So just hold off on individual towns. I'll do my best to answer as many questions that you have, but just try not to ask about specific towns, but because we'll get to it. All right, so happening right now, we have just some light to moderate rainfall because the cold air hasn't really arrived yet. It's still kind of further up to the northwest, so just some light showers kind of near Greenville, kind of near Anderson, and that's really the extent of the weather that's happening right now. Further up to the northwest, though, let's talk about the winter storm warning. That's what most people want to know about. All right, so within the pinkish, purplish shaded area, that's where the snowfall totals are going to be at their highest. The snowfall totals have gone up since last night. I was kind of going conservative with the forecast last night, but since then, those totals have gone up in terms of what our forecast models have been showing. So now anything within this purple shaded area from Asheville over to Waynesville, Bryson City, Cullowhee, Franklin, any of these places could get as much as 3 to 6 inches of snow. Most of that won't happen until after midnight. I'll show you the timing in just a sec. But the really cool, cool thing you could say, the wild thing is that anybody above 5,000 feet of elevation, they make it as much as 9 inches of snow, just because the higher those spots are, those highest spots are what catches all of the snow, so to speak, and when the storm really gets kicking after midnight tonight, the gusts could be pretty strong as well, upwards of 35 miles per hour. So that includes most of the deeper part of the North Carolina mountains. They'll get the most snow tonight. Further down to the south, though, as you get a little bit closer to the upstate, the snowfall totals will drop off a little bit. So you go towards Rabun County, Georgia. They're under a winter weather advisory because the snow, while it may still be there, it's probably not going to be quite as much as what they see further up into the mountains. Then you've got places like Brevard, which is kind of just across the state line, kind of on that 1 to 3 inch range is more what we're looking at there. Same with Hendersonville, same with Marion, all of these places that are a little bit further down to the south, closer to the state line with South Carolina. Snowfall totals probably won't be quite as high, nor will the wind gusts be quite as high, probably more in the order of 35 miles per hour. Then you keep going further south, and I'm thinking, pretty much everybody who's kind of south of that South Carolina, North Carolina state line, I don't really think we're going to get much of anything. I hate to be the bearer of bad news for those hoping for snow in Greenville and Spartanburg, Clemson, places like that. It's just going to be a little too warm for that. Our temperatures will bottom out tomorrow morning in the mid-upper 30s and on the lower end of things, so that's just not quite cold enough for us to see snow. Part of the reason for that is because the winds will be coming down slope, down the mountains, and as that happens, temperatures warm up normally, and that's what our forecast models are kind of pinpointing. So those hoping for snow, probably not going to get it all across really anywhere in South Carolina. It'll be still windy and still a lot colder tomorrow, but the snowfall just probably not going to happen because temperatures will just be a little bit too warm. That being said, though, we're already seeing quite a bit of snow out there across much of western Alabama, northeastern Mississippi. This is where the cold air is kind of wrapping around the center of circulation with the low. The low pressure center is about right here, southwest of Atlanta. And, with any low pressure, you've got winds flowing counterclockwise around that center of circulation. So, on the back side of that, with the wraparound moisture and the cold air that's coming in, it's really no surprise that we're getting snow. So down to the southeast of that low in Savannah, Orlando, Miami, you've got 70s. Contrast that with the other side of the front, which you can see pretty well here just based on the temperatures. 50 in Birmingham, temperatures are going to nosedive tonight over there. 34 Nashville, 20 St. Louis, single digits in Kansas City. This is a full-on Arctic air mass that's coming in. So there's no question that the North Carolina mountains will get snow tonight. Obviously, the totals can vary, but I'm still pretty confident in that 3 to 6 inch range. All right, so let's time it out. Next 24 hours by 10 o'clock tonight, not really seeing the cold air make its way in just yet. But by around midnight is when I think a lot of this will kind of start mixing into either a wintry mix or into full-on snow. At least that's what our forecast model's showing. Whenever you get these bright colors showing up in the winter, that, on any other time of season or any other time of year, that would look like heavy rain. But I think what the forecast model's showing is actually melting precipitation as it's falling. Whenever you have precipitation that's melting through the atmosphere as before it hits the ground, that can usually lead to higher reflectivity on radar. So I think that's what it's showing there. I don't think the rain's actually going to be this heavy looking. But that being said, once we get to like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, that's when a lot of this starts kind of switching over to snow towards Franklin, Cullowhee, places like that. So this will be another overnight event. If you really want to stay up long enough to around 2 o'clock in the morning, yeah, you'll probably get to see some snow, but it'll be really late / really early in the morning when a lot of this snow will be falling, especially around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. If you wake up early, if you're an early riser, you're going to wake up to it in Cullowhee, Franklin, Hendersonville, Asheville, places like that. Could be pretty heavy snow at times, but vast majority of us further southeast, again, because of those downslope winds, it's just going to be cold rain for Clemson, Greenville, Anderson, Pickens, places like that. 7 a.m. and the snow's already kind of lightening up a little bit because at the same time, the cold air that's coming in is also really dry, so that kind of cuts off any chance of precipitation pretty quickly. So by 7 a.m., most of the wintry stuff is kind of dying down, and by 9 o'clock, it's really dying down. There's a small chance we could see some little ice pellets or grapple that forms. I think that's what that's showing there in Spartanburg by 9 a.m., but I don't really think it'll be anything too significant. However, up in the mountains, there's a pretty good chance, with the snow falling and any untreated roads could be a little bit slick in the morning, so be mindful of that if you're driving early tomorrow. And then by lunchtime tomorrow, everybody's back in the sun. So this will be a really quick event, but in that time, a lot of snow could fall up in the mountains, especially up in those higher elevations. Like we said, upwards of 5,000 feet, you may get something like 7, 8 inches of snow. It'll vary a lot depending on where you are. So that's why we're going with the ranges for tomorrow. Let's talk about the wind chill, though. That's the other half of the forecast, is just how crazy cold tomorrow is going to be. We'll have a pretty strong northwest wind that comes in, and that, well, you'll feel that in the morning. Look at these feels like temperatures tomorrow. 19 Hendersonville, 20 Asheville, 34 Greenville. Everywhere is going to be cold. So regardless of whether or not you see snow, everybody's going to be cold tomorrow, and it'll feel like it's below freezing most of the day. Check it out by lunchtime, still looking at wind chills in the 20s up towards Asheville, Hendersonville, while the rest of us are in the 30s and 40s. Then you get to tomorrow night, and yes, deep freeze mode. That's when everybody starts getting cold out there. So brace yourselves. It's definitely going to be a cold one. All right, so I will put this overview graphic up, and I'll try to move on over here, see if there's any other questions I can answer for you guys. Looks like we got a lot of people tuning in. That's good to see. Let's see here. People just saying hello. Hello to Danny Baxfield. Glad you're watching. We've got Robin Mettler watching from Seneca. Good to meet. Good, glad you're watching, Robin. Seneca, unfortunately, is not really one of those places that is likely to see snow, but sorry to burst your bubble. There will be other chances. You know, this is the beginning of the winter, so there's always going to be another snow event, I'm sure. And Courtney's also watching from Seneca. Good to see you, Ann. Glad you're watching. So yeah, general gist of things is that a lot of the snow is going to be in the mountains, and we'll get another chance probably later in the winter, I'm sure, in Greenville. I'm sure it'll happen at some point, but tomorrow probably not going to be a snow day for Greenville, Anderson, Spartanburg, anywhere along I-85. That's where we are, by the way. WYFF4 is right here in Greenville. So we will not wake up to snow, but if you're in Asheville, you'll wake up to plenty of snow, especially if you kind of live up on the hillside. You'll get a good bit. So here's the general overview. You know, mountain showers kind of really starting from around midnight till around 6 a.m. tomorrow is when the snow should be around its heaviest up in the mountains, around 3 to 6 inches along and west of I-40. And then US 64, which is the highway that connects Hendersonville to Brevard, just across the state line, in the southern part of the mountains. They'll get around 1 to 3 inches, especially in the higher spots. It'll be more like 3 in the valley. It'll be more like 1, and then just a cold rain south of the line. Then tomorrow, it is cold, much colder. Again, wind chills are going to be in the 20s and 30s all day long. You will need to layer up. Once we get to tomorrow night, we'll get into that almost dangerously cold territory where temperatures, you know, if you're outside for too long, it can be a little bit dangerous. So that means, or that generally happens, you know, when you're in the mid 20s or lower, which we will be with the actual temperatures after sunset tonight. So one thing we like to say in the weather world, whenever temperatures dip below freezing, pipes, plants, and pets. You want to remember all 3 of those things. The 3 Ps, very important, that you wrap up any sensitive plumbing that you may have just so that the pipes don't burst overnight. Plants, obviously, bring them inside. Pets, bring them inside as well, because you don't want your plant friends or pet friends freezing out there. So that's really about it. I'll try to scroll through any other questions I have that in the comment section. But that's the general gist of the forecast. So if you are in North Carolina, in the North Carolina mountains, you got a good forecast panned out. You know, lots of snow ahead. Just a cold rain for us here in Greenville and other places in the upstate. But I'll have another forecast or another look at the forecast coming up on the news at 11, which may actually be a little bit later tonight. We've got the Packers and the Vikings playing on NBC right now, so the Sunday night newscast can run a little bit later than usual. So whenever this game wraps up, we'll have another look at the forecast and kind of go over what's happening on radar. I think by then we may have a little bit of transition from rain into a wintry mix or what have you by around that time, around 11:30 later tonight. So we'll be talking about that on radar as well. But anyways, that's about it for now. We'll see you on the late newscast later tonight. But until then, have a great night. Stay safe, everybody.